At the most elite high school in South Korea, where only the top 1% of students attend, Han Ji-woo struggles to fit in. While he was previously the top student in his previous, less prestigious school, he now finds himself struggling to keep up, particularly in mathematics, which is considered the most critical subject for college entrance. His math teacher, Mr. Kim Gun-ho, informs Ji-woo that his grades will not be sufficient to gain admission to a prestigious college, and suggests that he consider transferring. One night, Ji-woo's roommates give him money to purchase snacks and alcohol for everyone, but on his way back, he is caught by the night guard, Lee Hak-sung. Ji-woo's roommates offer him money as a token of gratitude, but he refuses, stating that they are friends. They discuss alternative methods for bringing in late-night snacks, but this has proven impossible since Hak-sung began working as a guard. Hak-sung visits his physician, who informs him that working as a night guard is detrimental to his health and that his use of sleeping pills is causing disruptions to his biorhythm. Afterwards, Hak-sung returns to his lonely apartment, where he spends his time feeding his turtle, drinking strawberry milk. The next day, Ji-woo is officially expelled from the dormitories. Bo-ram teases him on his way out. A few hours later, Ji-woo returns to his family's apartment, which he tidies before his mother arrives home from work. Not wanting to disappoint her, Ji-woo tells her that he only came to visit and must return to school before it gets too late. As Ji-woo made his way back, inclement weather set in and he sought refuge in the abandoned laboratory of his school. However, he was discovered by the guard, Hak-sung. Upon learning of Ji-woo's lack of a place to stay, Hak-sung extended an invitation for him to return to his office for the night. While Ji-woo slept, Hak-sung discovered the challenging mathematics homework that the young man had been struggling to complete. At dawn, Hak-sung asked Ji-woo to leave. To Ji-woo's surprise, upon arriving to his mathematics class, he found that his homework had been completed and all answers were correct. Despite Ji-woo's request for confidentiality, his classmate Bo-ram noticed and encouraged him to show the teacher. After class, Ji-woo sought to express his gratitude to Hak-sung and request tutelage, but was met with rejection. Later, while studying in the school library, Ji-woo overheard that even his classmates' private tutors struggled with similar mathematics problems, further emphasizing Hak-sung's exceptional abilities. Ji-woo expressed his frustration at the opportunities that others had that he did not, and Hak-sung ultimately relented, agreeing to tutor him on the condition that Ji-woo pay with strawberry milk. The following day, Hak-sung visited his friend and Ji-cheol, who had assisted him in immigrating to South Korea and currently worked as the lead for supporting North Korean defectors in Seoul. As nightfall approached, Hak-sung brought the lamps to the abandoned laboratory to secretly provide Ji-woo with tutelage under the agreement that 1. The tutelage remained confidential, 2. Only mathematics would be discussed, and 3. Hak-sung would not address grades or examinations. Hak-sung began the lesson by providing an exercise to calculate the area of a triangle, which Ji-woo solved quickly, but was corrected by Hak-sung's demonstration of a larger mathematical concept. Feeling misled, Ji-woo believed it to be unjust that Hak-sung had provided him with an incorrect question. However, Hak-sung's point was that Ji-woo was approaching problem-solving in the wrong manner. While obtaining the correct answer is important, understanding the question is even more crucial. Mathematics is centered around the process of finding a solution. Upon Ji-woo demonstrating an understanding of the concept, Hak-sung referred to it as epsilon, eliciting a flashback of a younger version of himself and a friend receiving a fancy pen as a reward for their academic achievement. As Ji-woo still lacked a place to stay, Hak-sung offered him accommodation. Mr. Kim had an important announcement for his mathematics students. Instead of having traditional finals, the class would participate in the prestigious Pythagoras mathematics competition, which would serve as their examination. The students were not thrilled about this as they only had 2 months to prepare, but Mr. Kim expected them all to win gold. Ji-woo attended mathematics classes with Hak-sung daily, and Bo-ram noticed how frequently Ji-woo purchased strawberry milk, almost as if it were an addiction. As the weeks passed, Ji-woo continued to improve his mathematics skills each day. One afternoon, he received devastating news. A close friend and fellow welfare student was transferring back to their previous school, admitting that attending this school had not been worth it. Ji-woo is contemplating his current predicament as Bo-ram attempts to understand his perspective. However, he feels that she is mocking him by claiming they are in a similar situation despite her privileged background. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Bo-ram's mother, who scolds her daughter for associating with a welfare recipient. Despite technically being on welfare herself due to her divorced parents, Bo-ram is not receiving financial aid, making her situation vastly different. Later, Ji-woo confides in Hak-sung about his friend and contemplates transferring schools. Hak-sung encourages him to persevere and emphasizes that success is not determined by intelligence, but rather by the courage to persist until the end. To illustrate his point, he shows Ji-woo an exercise he corrected, highlighting that while there may be mistakes in the final solutions, the student has learned the process to solve them. The following day, Bo-ram apologizes to Ji-woo with a gift of strawberry milk. As he becomes distracted, she follows him to an abandoned laboratory, discovering his secret. She expresses her gratitude to Hak-sung for caring for Ji-woo and requests to visit occasionally, to which Hak-sung agrees on the condition of secrecy. Another evening, Ji-woo inquires about Hak-sung's motivation for studying mathematics so diligently. Hak-sung explains that initially he did it for the scholarship and his family's benefit, but as he delved deeper into the subject, he found it to be beautiful, ultimately falling in love with it. During the next mathematics class, Ji-woo corrects Mr. Kim's answer to an exercise, utilizing the logic taught by Hak-sung, but is scolded by Mr. Kim for providing a correct but unanticipated solution, emphasizing that students should only be concerned with providing the expected answer rather than the correct one. The script is centered on test technique, but Ji-woo expresses his disagreement and asserts that he will still be able to provide the correct answers on the test. This attitude is perceived as rude by Mr. Kim, who subsequently makes Ji-woo stand outside the classroom for the remainder of the class session. Subsequently, Ji-woo informs Mr. Kim that he will not be transferring. Later in the day, during one of Hak-sung's visits, Ji-cheol presents him with a smartphone to make it easier to stay in touch. Hak-sung excitedly shows the device to Ji-woo and the latter observes that he is reading lengthy theses on the small screen. To assist, Ji-woo enlists the help of a classmate to sneak him into the computer lab so that he can print the entire document and gift it to Hak-sung. The following day is the Pythagoras test, and Ji-woo performs exceptionally well thanks to the lessons provided by Hak-sung. However, Bo-ram starts off well by remembering the music, but eventually becomes frustrated under the pressure and exits the classroom without completing the exam. Her mother subsequently prevents her from attending school to avoid any embarrassment and falsely informs the school that they will be going on a trip. When Jiwoo attempts to reach out to her, all of his messages go unanswered. On the same night, someone leaks the Pythagoras test on the internet, causing difficulties for the teachers who must now identify the responsible student to avoid being fired by the education board. Meanwhile, Jiwoo and Haksung visit a bookstore and are recognized by a stranger who also hails from North Korea. He addresses Haksung as a doctor and recalls his days as a professor at the university the stranger attended. He also refers to Haksung as the famous mathematical genius and mistakenly assumes that Jiwoo is his son, creating an awkward situation. Upon returning home, Haksung reminisces about the fond memories he shared with his son, Lee Tae-yeon, such as having dinner together, getting a turtle, and purchasing strawberry milk, which was Tae-yeon's favorite. The following day, a significant development was reported on television. The renowned North Korean mathematician, Lee Haksung, had made a breakthrough in solving the Riemann hypothesis, one of the most important unsolved problems in mathematics. The solution was under review by a board of experts. Professor Oh, appearing on the news program, recounted a story from his youth, where he competed in a math Olympiad and met Haksung, who represented North Korea while Oh represented South Korea. Both were presented with a prestigious award by a renowned mathematician, and Professor Oh still possessed the pen to this day. Both Ji-cheol and Jiwoo were aware of the news, and it was Jiwoo who reached out to Haksung first to inquire about the development. However, Haksung became agitated and requested that he never be asked about the Riemann hypothesis again. Meanwhile, Mr. Kim was struggling with the fallout from the recent test incident, as his reputation was at stake. However, upon reviewing security footage provided by a colleague, he found evidence to exonerate himself. The following day, Mr. Kim contacted Jiwoo and presented him with footage of him leaving the computer lab with printed materials in hand. As a result, Mr. Kim offered Jiwoo a deal. If he agreed to transfer schools, his blame would not be made public, and Bo-ram was particularly upset, as she knew the truth. Ji-cheol visited Haksung to apologize for being unable to keep the National Intelligence Service at bay, but Haksung was still grateful for the years of protection he had provided. As Haksung was preparing to leave town, Ji-cheol returned to him a document containing his research that Haksung had attempted to discard years earlier, but Ji-cheol had saved as it was too valuable to throw away. At that moment, Jiwoo arrived, but upon hearing raised voices, decided to remain outside. Haksung was furious, as it was this research that had resulted in the loss of his son's life, and he refused to make it public. After Ji-cheol left, Jiwoo attempted to speak with Haksung, but the older man only berated him, refusing to acknowledge any close relationship between them beyond that of tutor and student. Meanwhile, Haksung arrives at the bus station and, upon believing he sees his son's face on a random passerby, begins to recall the night of Tae-yeon's death. He remembers that after Tae-yeon got into another altercation while defending fellow defectors, the two had a heated argument, with Tae-yeon accusing his father of only escaping to the south for selfish reasons, and not doing so when his mother was suffering from tuberculosis. Haksung insists that he did so in order to provide his son with a better life. Tae-yeon then runs away, attempting to return to the north by swimming, but is shot by border patrol. Ji-woo, meanwhile, stealthily enters his home to use his mother's stamp on the transfer papers while she is asleep. The following morning, he delivers the papers to Mr. Kim, who commends him for his actions. Hak-sung, meanwhile, is hiding in a hotel as Ji-cheol searches for him to bring him to a television show. He is surprised to receive a call from Bo-ram informing him of Ji-woo's transfer. As Ji-woo is leaving the school, Bo-ram arrives and forcibly brings him to the auditorium by stealing his belongings. Professor Oh begins the ceremony with a speech about a recently proven theory, and it is at this moment that Hak-sung chooses to interrupt, having rushed to the school after releasing his pet turtle into a river. He presents his pen as proof of his identity, and Professor Oh warmly welcomes him and allows him to give a speech as well. Hak-sung confesses that he was the one who taught Ji-woo math, and presents a printed thesis as evidence that he did not leak the test. He also reveals that it was Mr. Kim who leaked the test to his private students, causing Mr. Kim to leave in anger and disgrace. Hak-sung then shares a portion of his story, explaining that he defected from North Korea to study math properly because his government was using his research for weapons development. He expresses his desire for his mathematics to be used to secure employment and admission to good colleges, but regrets that such greed ultimately cost him his son's life. He expresses remorse for his choices, but thanks Ji-woo for never seeing him that way and remaining loyal to his secret even if it jeopardized his future. As Hak-sung concludes his speech, Ji-cheol, who has been listening the entire time, leaves without mentioning the television interview. However, he does wait for Hak-sung outside and offers him a ride. He then discards the smartphone he had previously gifted to him and presents Hak-sung with a new, legal passport recognizing him as a South Korean citizen, as well as tickets for him to leave town temporarily to evade the National Intelligence Service. Sometime later, Ji-cheol visits Ji-woo and gives him a gift from Hak-sung, the famous pen and the first draft of his thesis. Ji-woo and his college class pay a visit to the esteemed Oberwolfach Research Institute for Mathematics 3 years later. Now that Hak-sung is employed there, Ji-woo greets him with some strawberry milk and a hug before starting a lengthy conversation on arithmetic.